In today's volatile global landscape, few leaders stand in greater danger than Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. At just 37, he has become a rising symbol of resistance across Africa, a man whose defiance unsettles empires. The threat to his life does not come from tyranny or corruption, but from his unyielding refusal to submit to foreign control. From the marble corridors of Washington to the bright boulevards of Paris, powerful forces share a single goal: to remove him from power. Even within his own borders, plots simmer. Political elites whisper in secret, hidden adversaries conspire, and old allies quietly turn their gaze away. Across the continent, some African presidents watch him with suspicion, not because of his cruelty, but because of his independence. The reason is simple. Traoré refuses to follow the old pattern where outsiders hold the strings. He is tearing apart decades of unequal agreements and putting his nation's interests first. To those invested in the status quo, that makes him dangerous. They do not seek dialogue or compromise. They want him eliminated by any means necessary. But Traoré is not waiting to be hunted. He is preparing. He is strengthening his defenses, quietly building a smarter, faster, more resilient security network. This is not paranoia. It is survival. Since taking power, he has lived under constant threat. More than 15 assassination attempts in less than 2 years. This is not politics as usual. It is war, not just for power, but for principle. His fight is for the idea that Burkina Faso's destiny must be written by its own people, not by foreign investors, former colonizers, or external powers. Some dismiss these challenges as normal for military leaders, but then why aren't the leaders of Gabon, Chad, Mali, or Niger facing the same relentless danger? What sets Traoré apart is that he is more than a soldier. He has become the face of a movement. As the unofficial figurehead of the AES alliance, he has ignited an awakening across the Sahel, a wave of consciousness that reminds Africa it can rise without permission. The true spark came at the Russia-Africa summit, when Traoré didn't just speak, he electrified the room. His words carried fire, his presence command, his tone conviction. In that moment, he wasn't seen as a politician, but as a man who embodied the hunger for freedom buried deep within a continent. His speech sent shockwaves through Africa and beyond. People didn't just hear his voice. They felt his message. They saw the birth of something larger than politics, the rebirth of African pride. But every spark draws fire. His rise has made him one of the most targeted men in the region. Powerful interests want him captured or erased. On April 16, 2025, the danger returned once again. Another coup attempt. Another night when everything hung by a thread. His team uncovered the plot just in time, preventing bloodshed. Yet the failed coup didn't end the threat. It evolved. Those who tried to overthrow him vanished across the border, not to hide, but to regroup. Reports soon revealed that the conspirators fled to Ivory Coast, a country accused of maintaining quiet ties with France. There, instead of being arrested, they were welcomed, protected, and allowed to reorganize. Under the supervision of Ivorian authorities, they rebuilt their networks, preparing for another strike before June 2025. If they expected Traoré to stay passive, they miscalculated. He was already several moves ahead. He launched what insiders now call the lockdown doctrine. Not just a tightening of security, but a complete transformation of how power and protection operate in Burkina Faso. Loyalty began to outweigh titles. Surveillance replaced ceremony, and trust had to be earned, not assumed. The first target of this reform was his own inner circle, the presidential guard. Once the pride of the state, it had become infiltrated by bribes and divided loyalties. Some of the men sworn to protect him had turned. A few were only steps away from him when they betrayed their oath. Traoré acted without hesitation. He dismantled the entire unit and rebuilt it from the ground up. Every member was investigated, every background rechecked. Education, family, finances, even friendships abroad. Nothing was off limits. Only those who passed every test without a single doubt were allowed to remain. What emerged was not just a guard, but a shield. A network of men and women bound by conviction, not convenience. But even loyalty was not enough. The betrayal of Barry Abdul Maine revealed an even deeper weakness: the country's outdated communication system. It was a crack in the armor through which secrets could bleed unseen. Traoré replaced it entirely with a new encrypted network, designed to detect and neutralize leaks in real time. There would be no second chances. Any violation meant immediate consequences. With threats multiplying daily, he reactivated the Internal Counterintelligence Office. Once focused on foreign enemies, now tasked with watching internal ones. Ministers, generals, police chiefs, no one was exempt. Their loyalties, actions, and conversations were quietly reviewed. Anyone whose commitment wavered was not punished, but relocated far from power, far from temptation. Some called it paranoia, but in a land where Thomas Sankara once fell to betrayal, caution is not fear. It is wisdom. Traoré has studied history well, and he refuses to let it repeat itself. He is not merely protecting himself, he is protecting a vision, one that outsiders still fail to understand, but that is already reshaping Africa's future. From the very beginning, Captain Ibrahim Traoré built something unique, a reserve force made not of career soldiers, but of ordinary citizens. Teachers, farmers, shopkeepers, men and women driven by nothing more than love for their country. They became known as the VDP, Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland. At first, their duty was simple: to defend villages from terrorist attacks. But over time, they evolved into something much greater: the silent guardians of a revolution, a second army loyal not to foreign powers or political interests, but to the idea of a free and independent Burkina Faso. After the most recent coup attempt, Traoré gave the VDP a new role. No longer limited to protecting rural communities, they were now charged with safeguarding the future of the nation itself. For Traoré, these volunteer defenders represented the last shield standing between his revolution and the chaos waiting to consume it. Today, the VDP are no longer just patrolling villages or manning checkpoints. They are stationed across the country, in key towns, near military bases, and around government facilities. Their mission now goes beyond carrying weapons. They serve as the nation's covert eyes and ears, trained to observe, identify suspicious activity, and report directly to the leadership. Every secret meeting, every whisper of betrayal, every unusual movement under the cover of night is quietly recorded. The VDP has become Traoré's extended surveillance network, a living alarm system spread across the nation, ready to warn before danger reaches the capital. What began as a group of villagers fighting terrorism has transformed into the immune system of the revolution, detecting and neutralizing threats before they can strike. But Traoré sought even greater protection. Under his direction, the Interior Ministry quietly launched a new initiative: a national biometric tracking system. On the surface, it seemed simple, just an effort to modernize identification and update citizen records. But beneath that purpose lay something more strategic. According to sources inside Burkina Faso's intelligence community, the true goal was surveillance, particularly of those linked to the failed April 16th coup. Their movements, meetings, and late-night communications are now monitored and documented with precision. It is the most extensive security network in the country's history, and not everyone approves. Critics, mostly from abroad, accuse Traoré of using fear and technology to suppress dissent and centralize power. But his supporters see it differently. They have witnessed the attacks, the betrayal, and the relentless plots against him. They remember his words: "Burkina Faso is not yet a democracy, it is a revolution." And revolutions are not built on comfort or elections, but on discipline, vigilance, and sacrifice. From his perspective, the great powers of the modern world, those who now lead in technology, manufacturing, and influence, did not rise through diplomacy or peaceful reforms. They rose by dismantling the systems that oppressed them, through struggle and, yes, through revolution. If Burkina Faso hopes to rise, he believes it must walk a similar path. Naturally, such a vision makes him enemies. Both within and beyond his borders, powerful interests reject his message. They prefer a weak Burkina Faso, poor, divided, and easy to control. In chaos, profit is easy. In dependency, power is simple. For decades, local elites enriched themselves amid disorder, while foreign companies quietly drained the nation's gold, land, and resources. When Traoré came to power with his vision of a strong, unified, and self-sufficient Burkina Faso, he closed those doors. He cut off their privileges, rewrote their contracts, and shattered the comfort of exploitation. From that moment, they decided he had to be removed, no matter the cost. When Captain Ibrahim Traoré first took power in September 2022, the resistance began immediately. Within 1 year, from September 2022 to September 2023, 4 separate coup attempts were launched to unseat him. All of them failed. And what came next surprised even his critics. Instead of imprisoning or executing the plotters, he released them. No trials, no punishment, only a warning. Stay out of my path, or face the consequences. But mercy has limits. The second and third coups came swiftly, both in October 2023. This time, there were no second chances. Arrests and investigations spread across the ranks, and the nation tensed as the battle between loyalty and betrayal grew sharper. By late 2023 and early 2024, Burkina Faso was a powder keg, not just because of foreign interference, but because treachery had seeped into the military itself. One plot followed another. By the time the 10th attempt was uncovered, the situation had become alarming. This time, the conspiracy bore the fingerprints of terrorism. Intelligence traced the plan back to Paul-Henri Damiba, the ousted former leader, now operating from his base in Togo. He wasn't seeking justice, he was seeking revenge. Damiba had forged new alliances with extremist groups, received quiet support from certain Ivorian officials, and reactivated dormant loyalists still hidden inside Burkina Faso's army. It was more than betrayal, it was an act of war. Their target was Barcelogo, a strategic town not far from the capital, Ouagadougou. The attack was devastating. Hundreds of soldiers and civilians were killed. The town fell. But their true objective wasn't territory. It was fear. It was psychological warfare meant to break morale, to whisper to every soldier and citizen, "You are vulnerable. Your system is collapsing. Your leader cannot protect you." It was a message of manipulation designed to weaken faith in Traoré and sow doubt in the revolution's heart. But once again, they underestimated him, and they misjudged the spirit of a people who had already decided that submission would no longer define their destiny. It was psychological warfare, designed not just to wound, but to erode. The enemy's true weapon was not the bullet, but the lie. Their goal was clear: to weaken Traoré's authority, to breed distrust within his ranks, and to ignite rebellion from within. They wanted total collapse, military mutiny, political chaos, a nation in ruins. But once again, their strategy failed. Some traitors were captured, others fled, yet every plot ended the same way: exposed and dismantled. And each time, the trail of evidence led back to the same source: foreign actors funding, arming, and directing covert operations. Outside forces continued to manipulate events, trying to keep Burkina Faso unstable, fractured, and easy to control. This is why Traoré's security measures cannot be seen as paranoia. They are survival itself, a shield against a system that has exploited his country for generations. The struggle he faces today goes far beyond politics. It is not about elections or titles. It is about identity, about whether Burkina Faso will belong to its people or remain a pawn in someone else's game. Those who plot against him know exactly what is at stake. They do not just fight him with weapons, they fight him with words. They flood the internet with lies, misinformation, and slander, poisoning the minds of those who cannot see the truth for themselves. Western media follows a familiar script, portraying Traoré as a tyrant, while carefully avoiding the full context. Perhaps it is no surprise, these outlets defend the same interests that fear his rise. Recently, a U.S. Africa Command official accused Traoré of diverting Burkina Faso's gold reserves to build himself a private fortress. Anyone who truly follows events knows how absurd that claim is. Traoré has always maintained that the nation's wealth belongs to its people, not to him. And even if part of that gold is being used to strengthen the country's defenses, can anyone blame him? A man facing 15 assassination attempts has the right to protect not just his life, but the revolution it carries. Yet the attacks keep coming. Another headline screamed that he was embezzling national funds, a claim so hollow it would be laughable if it weren't repeated so persistently. Real corruption leaves traces. We know what it looks like in Africa: luxury cars, designer clothes, private jets, champagne dinners while citizens go hungry. But Traoré lives the opposite life. He wears modest clothes, drives practical vehicles, and stays among his people. He faces the same hardships they do. If he were stealing, there would be signs: unexplained wealth, foreign mansions, endless trips abroad. But there are none. He remains grounded, disciplined, focused. And maybe that's what truly frightens his enemies, that he cannot be bought, bribed, or seduced. So they invent lies, hoping repetition will do what bullets could not. One of the most poisonous rumors claimed that Traoré had turned against his own people, that he was targeting the Fulani community. The story spread quickly, especially among Burkinabés living in France. Some even protested, demanding his resignation. But inside Burkina Faso, where truth still breathes in the dust of its streets, there was silence. No journalist reported such attacks because none had happened. The story was born, not in Ouagadougou, but in foreign studios, written by analysts who have never set foot on the land they claim to describe. And yet, their voices dominated global headlines. Too often, Africa's story is told by those who have never lived it. And if Africans do not challenge these false narratives, they will become history. The smear campaign continued with new variations, new lies. One week it was gold. The next, corruption. Then ethnic cleansing. Each accusation collapsed under scrutiny, but the damage lingered, designed to erode trust and divide the public. The same pattern, the same puppeteers, the same hands behind the curtain. But this is where Africa must draw the line. We can no longer allow others to rewrite our truth. We cannot let propaganda drown the voices of those who live the struggle. As Traoré himself once said, "I am not perfect. No leader is. But I will never betray the people who placed their faith in me." And he has proven that. How many African leaders today stand so boldly against the established order? How many risk everything for genuine change, not just for their own nation, but for the entire continent? If Traoré were to fall, if he were silenced, it would not be Burkina Faso alone that loses. It would be Africa. Just as the death of Thomas Sankara left a void that lasted decades, his fall would echo across generations. Because leaders like him do not appear often. They emerge once in a lifetime. Men who remind us that Africa deserves more than survival. It deserves dignity. Traoré has become that symbol. The proof that integrity and courage can still exist in leadership. Yet, even as he stands firm, betrayal creeps not only from abroad but from within. Reports suggest that even neighboring nations like Ivory Coast have given safe haven to those plotting against his revolution. It is a bitter truth, when those who share your skin conspire with those who once enslaved your soil. But despite all of it, the revolution endures. His security is tighter, his network more disciplined, and his resolve unbroken. Against every plot and every whisper, Traoré's vision for a sovereign Africa, one that governs itself without permission, still stands, still breathes, and still fights.